Fallon. Congressman, it's always wonderful to see you. At least Biden, at least this time, tried to clean up his own mess, not one of his handlers trying to clean up one of his gaffes. But this one may have compromised national security at home and among our allies. In your opinion, Congressman, did Joe Biden leak classified information?
Well, you know, Chris, thanks for having me on. And when I get classified briefings, I don't talk about the classified briefings. Joe Biden, when he opens his mouth, insert foot. It's unbelievable. Whatever we are doing to help the Ukrainians, Joe Biden doesn't need to be that specific and alert the Russians. We know that we need to provide them with a lot of asymmetrical aid, humanitarian assistance, economic assistance, and of course military assistance. And he should probably leave it at that. But Joe don't know when to just shut his mouth.
So let me read between the lines, folks, is that the congressman here has an awareness that if he actually confirms that Joe Biden violated and leaked national security information, that he too would be leaking national security information. So there you go. Thank you, Congressman. Enough said. We have an agreement with Ukraine. It's called the Budapest Memorandum, we in the United States. It obligates us to help Ukraine in the event Russia gets squirrely, which they have done. But even with that, the U.S. has been walking on eggshells because of who's in charge. Meanwhile, Russia, unabashedly, they team up with Belarus. They're getting help from China and the United Nations. Why are the thugs and the tyrants so brash and the West, being led by Joe Biden, so afraid?
You know what I miss? I miss the bold leadership of Donald J. Trump and Ronald Reagan, and that would just go forward and take care of business. I signed on to a letter, Chris, back in November when it was clear the Russians were amassing troops on the Ukrainian border. They were lying to us then. They're lying to us now. They said it was just an exercise. And we needed to get as much military aid to the Ukrainians at that time as possible, because it's a lot easier to get aid into a country that's still at peace than one that's at war. So while we are still able to get them aid, it's just more difficult. Joe Biden dragged his feet for weeks. I don't know why. The people, by and large, there's been an overwhelmingly bipartisan effort on the Hill to support the Ukrainians. We are leading this effort, not the commander-in-chief. Joe Biden is not leading from the front. He is following from behind.
Yeah, man, I don't even know if he's in line at this point. I don't even think you can put him at the end of the line. He proposed a military budget. Here's a prime example. It calls for the United States military to scale down to the smallest, the most outdated Army and Air Force since World War II. Congressman, are you concerned that here we have another Democrat administration weakening us from within? And is Joe Biden trying to pay for his silly green agenda, or AOC's silly green agenda, by sacrificing our national security to do it?
Yeah, you know what Joe Biden's doing? He's putting America last again. Chris, this is the largest land invasion in Europe since World War II. The last guy to invade the Ukraine was named Adolf. This is not a time to cut. Now, he's going to say, the Democrats will say, well, we're increasing the budget by 4%. That's not even keeping up with inflation. It is, you know, putting us at a strategic disadvantage. Tomorrow we won't be as strong as we are today, because Joe Biden has also given us, because of his prolific spending, an 8% inflation rate, and it's climbing. It's only going to get worse when the wheat doesn't get planted in the Ukraine, and they're the breadbasket of Europe and beyond. That's a commodity, which means wheat in the United States, although we'll have enough to feed our population and probably export, it will go up. The prices will rise again. Gasoline will probably rise. So we haven't seen anything yet. And as your prior guest said, this is like Jimmy Carter 2.0.
Yeah, well, you just came from, what, Poland, Romania, Moldova. Give us a sense. How is the United States received in that part of the world?
Oh, my God. Poland, they have a big statue of Ronald Reagan in downtown Warsaw. It was awesome. I got my picture taken with it. The Poles are very wary.
I'll bet.
Isn't that great? You got to love the Poles. And they hate the Russians. They're very wary of the Russian government. 30 years ago, they were wary. It's important to note, Chris, that all of those Eastern European countries that joined NATO after the fall of the Berlin Wall, NATO didn't come to them and ask them. They came to NATO because they were, very fearful of a resurgent Russian bear, and that's exactly what they got. And the reason why, like we were talking to the Interior Minister of Romania, and he thanked us, profusely on a personal note, because we're keeping his 9-year-old daughter safe and the other Romanian children because they're part of NATO, whereas Vladimir Putin is butchering Ukrainian children. There's a big difference, and Article 5 of the NATO Treaty and Alliance means something.
Well, I want to turn our attention, the last question I have for you, to our beloved Texas. Stories are coming out of Austin ISD, fresh off of them forcing their children to celebrate Gay Pride, their elementary school kids celebrating Gay Pride Week. One teacher allegedly claimed that 20% of her fourth grade students came out to her as LGBTQ. 60%. Now, you used to be in the state legislature in Texas. How much longer do you think Texas Republicans can continue to collude with Democrat deviancy to deny parents school choice in the great state of Texas?
Chris, not a day longer, because this is absolutely absurd. Sexualized children in kindergarten through 5th grade in elementary school. Let them be kids. That's the woke agenda leading them. They probably don't even know what it is. They're like, kids, don't you want to be like this? And I don't know what the obsession of the left is with the LGBT community, because I could care, well, that's your business as a grown adult what you do. Doesn't make you good, it doesn't make you bad, it's your business. But to sit there and force feed this on children is disgusting, and it's not educating, it's indoctrinating.
Yeah, it's grooming. It sounds like grooming to me. State-funded grooming of sexual content to our kids. And I don't think our kids in K through 3 ought to be discussing sexuality of any kind, heterosexual, homosexual, whatever. It's just not appropriate. Of course, that's when we had standards, and because the Democrat Party runs the school system in this country, we no longer have standards. Congressman Pat Fallon, always appreciate your time, the service to the country. Come back again soon, sir. Thank you. When we come back, Joe Biden held another call with Ukrainian President Zelensky today. We go